Bring this meeting to order of the Amador County Board of Supervisors. We just came out of closed session. 1A, direction was given to County Council to defend from Old Golden Oaks LLC. 2A, claim was denied. 2B, direction was given to staff. And confidential minutes were approved. If you wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Okay, Supervisor Crew will be participating remotely via Zoom for today's meeting pursuant to Subdivision F of the Government Code, Section 54953, because he's currently sick with a contagious illness and unable to attend in person. Public matters not on the agenda, discussion items only. No action be taken. Any person may address the board at this time upon any subject within jurisdiction of Amador County Board of Supervisors. However, any matter that requires action may be referred to staff and/or committee for report and recommendation for possible action at subsequent board meetings. Please note there's a 3-minute time limit. Anybody from the public? Anybody from Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, we will move on. We need to addition to addendum 1A to 4A on the regular agenda. Do I have a motion to approve agenda?
Yes, but you added the addendum?
Yes, that's what I just said.
Okay. I move to approve the agenda with those changes.
I'm putting it to number 4A.
We have
at the very beginning. It'll be the beginning, everything else will push down.
How about number 4?
Okay, number 4, we can do that.
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote. We need to do a roll call since Supervisor Crew is not available.
Thank you, Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Oneto.
Aye.
Supervisor Forster.
Aye.
Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
Okay. Vote is 5-0. Approval of the consent agenda, additional item to 6X, second addendum of the IGA needs to be split apart on the consent. So we're going to make 2 different motions on the consent agenda, one for the rest and then one for 6X.
Move to approve the consent agenda, all items except for 6X.
Okay.
Second.
Call for the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Oneto.
Aye.
Supervisor Forster.
Aye.
Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
Okay, now we're calling for item 6X of the consent agenda.
Move to approve item 6X on the consent agenda, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Under discussion, I have family members have an interest in land across from the Buena Vista tribe, so I will not be voting on this matter.
Okay. Call for the vote again.
Thank you, Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Oneto.
Abstain.
Supervisor Forster.
Aye.
Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
4-0-1. Okay, we're going to 4A, or 4 I should say. Amador Speaks, Suicide Prevention Education Awareness Knowledge Support. Presentation by Stephanie Haas, MHSA Program Coordinator and Amador Speaks representative, related to the efforts of organization during the past year, as well as future goals, adoption and presentation of a resolution recognizing the week of September 10th through September 16th as National Suicide Prevention.
Hello.
Oh, we need a Heather, the speaker, microphone, excuse me. Come on
Good
up.
morning.
Morning.
This is our annual report that we provide you guys during Suicide Prevention Month. Thanks for having us. So we do have a slideshow, I think they're pulling that. Thank you. Right, so suicide prevention in Amador County. As we all know and have recently heard again, suicide is a long-term challenge here. We have rural areas are just in general more susceptible to higher suicide rates for a variety of reasons, such as our firearm ownership is higher. We have higher numbers of groups that are disproportionately impacted by suicide, like older adults and veterans. And we tend to isolate up here. Transportation can be a barrier, access to services, and so forth. Go ahead, next slide. Where's there? Just an overview of our suicide death data. The California Department of Public Health is on Zoom, and they'll be presenting more in depth in our rates and more when it comes to the data and diving deeper into that. But just a snapshot is that between 2016 and 2021, we experienced 73 suicide deaths in Amador County. Veterans represent 25% of those deaths, and the majority of people dying by suicide are white, middle-aged, older males. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go, perfect. So, you know, we've known about this issue for quite some time, and we've been trying to gather community input and community support to address this challenge, because it's not just, you know, an issue that is isolated to one department or one population and whatnot. It's a community challenge. And so when Capital Public Radio came and did a story on rural suicide and focused on Amador County about 5 years ago, that really brought a different level of education and awareness to suicide death and prevention. And as a result of that, we were able to engage with a lot of community members, and it really started a movement. So we started the Amador Speaks Suicide Prevention Coalition. And I will let Debbie, two more.
Hi, my name's Debbie, and I'm on the Speaks Committee. I also work at Sierra Wind Wellness and Recovery Center. And Amador Speaks, it operates the first suicide prevention coalition. It was formed in October 2018, right after the CAP radio prompted this movement. And we have met every month since, despite the pandemic. And we have a core membership represents from nonprofit organizations, agencies, community members, and those with a passion to address suicide in their community. And when I first started, I was a community member, and then that got me advanced to helping more. So next slide, please. Amador Speaks operates, we do a strategic plan every year where our primary focus is always on training. Data is extremely important, and community engagement and collaboration in a rural community. If we do not collaborate with other agencies and community members, we will not achieve anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback off what Debbie was saying, training is a real focus for us as a coalition. We really want to make sure people have the tools they need to help somebody in need. It doesn't do any good if your neighbor is struggling or your family member is struggling, you don't have the tools necessary to get them the help that they need to get out of that crisis situation. So we offer Question, Persuade, Refer. It's a suicide gatekeeper training. It's QPR. Nexus Youth and Family Services offers it. We offer it through behavioral health, and we've trained over 600 individuals in the last 5 years. We offer it in Spanish and English. Other trainings have been provided, such as El Rotafolio, which is target Spanish-speaking populations. We do the Living Work Start, Safe Talk, and Assist. And we also provide training during our regular coalition meetings every month. So last month we had a representative from Friends for Survival. We've had the chaplains that work with the Sheriff's Department come and talk to us. We've had the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has come and done training for us. And this, next week, we have, the VA coming to do a lethal means safety training. Next slide, please. Data. So data is critical to suicide prevention efforts. If you don't know who is dying at higher rates of suicide, you don't know where to target your efforts, really. You don't really know what your landscape is. So we have Jonah Cox from the California Department of Public Health. He's going to take over for a minute and kind of dive deeper into the data.
Hey, how you doing? I want to thank you for having me here today. My name is Jonah. I am a research scientist with the Office for Suicide Prevention, I'm here to go over some data for Amador County with you all. If we can go to, I think, 2 slides up, if that's possible. Here we go. So today's overview, we're going to talk about data we have compiled from the California Comprehensive Death Statistical Master File. So this compiles all the information for cause of death across the state of California. We're going to be using some census data, some information from the CDCR, that's the California Department of Correction and Rehabilitation as well. There's some special considerations with smaller populations. You notice probably when you get some data, a lot of times there'll be censored values. There's concerns that people might be identified by just listing that something occurred within the state or within the county. And so if there's a value is really small, a lot of times it gets censored. One way we overcome this is by aggregating the data. So you'll notice as we go through some of this data, we're going to be combining multiple years together. That's in order to be able to present the data and not have to censor it. In addition, we have something called confidence intervals that are going to be included. And we can go to the next slide and I'll show you what those look like. If you see these black bars that are going through the data, these black bars are basically saying this value resides somewhere within here. So we have a firm number that we use, and if you'll look here, the blue line is Amador County, and so we'll look at 2016 and 2017, and we have a value of 25.8. What this 95% confidence interval is saying is that how sensitive is this number to change? If there was a mistake made anywhere in the process, how much would that number be modified? And so what's important to note with this is that when we have smaller populations, that's more sensitive to any kind of error that gets thrown in the data. And so we represent that with these error bars. And so this orange line is the state of California. Believe it or not, they also have error bars. They're just a larger population. And so you can't quite see it as well. What we're going to go through here, this is looking through time, and we've merged 2016 and 2017 data, 2018 and 2019, and 2020 and 2021. And we're comparing Amador County to California. And we do see that Amador County has a significantly higher rate of suicide. And that rate, though, looks like it has kind of leveled off in 2020 and 2021. There was an increase from 2016 to 2017. If we can go to the next slide, please. Awesome, thank you. Another trend that we're noticing in Amador County, and in orange here, again, we have California. Generally speaking, suicide rates increase as we age. And so actually, a lot of times, the largest group that suicide rate would be those 85 and older. So when we're looking at Amador County, we do see this peak in that 36 to 55 year age group. And then it kind of slowly goes down for those that are older. So this is compared to California, we see this gradual increase. We see 12.8 for those that are 19 to 35, 13.2 for 36 to 55, and it goes up for those that are 56 to 65 and so on. Amador, we're seeing this peak for those that are a lot younger than we do see in the rest of California. Next slide, please. We also are seeing a large increase in firearm suicide, or sorry, a large, compared to the state of California, a large increase. It's more than 4 times the rate of the state of California. The firearms are particularly lethal. So if somebody decides they're going to utilize a firearm in a suicide attempt, they're likely to die by suicide. If you compare that to suffocation, we see that it is still larger than the state of California's numbers for the rate of suicide deaths, but the disparity between firearm deaths and suffocation is much larger. And we can go to the next slide, please. So one thing that's important to note is that rural counties in general have higher rates of suicide. So what we did here was we they're called non-core counties, and so there's this designation of different types of counties. And so Amador County is considered a non-core county. These are counties that have population smaller than 250,000 and without an urban cluster of 10,000 or more. Within California, there are 13 different counties that are non-core. This includes Alpine and Colusa and Calaveras, as well as Amador. And here I want you to note, in blue again is Amador County, and it does have an elevated rate of suicide compared to the other non-core counties. But here's where I want you to pay special attention to those error bars. This is saying how certain are we with this number if there were any kind of differences made. We've seen they're overlapping. And so what's important to note is we could say a couple things about this. The first thing we'll say is that Amador County does have a higher rate of suicide than the other non-core counties. The second thing we'll say is that we wouldn't consider it statistically significantly different. So while it's elevated, it's within the realm of possibilities that they are similar to each other, more similar to each other. Next slide, please. Amador County also has the Mule Creek Prison, and so we wanted to look at what was going on with Mule Creek Prison and their suicides and look at that in relation to Amador County. One thing important to note, so CDCR puts out a report on incarcerated suicides throughout the state. And so throughout the state, there's a rate of 15.2 suicides for every 100,000 in California in 2021. So the general rate for all Californians is 12.9. We do see that the incarcerated rate of suicide is slightly elevated compared to the rest of California, but I want to note that disparity is not very large. In fact, it seems counterintuitive, but I was reading through in preparation for this presentation, and it's much more likely somebody will die by suicide in a county jail than they will in a prison. So usually if there is a suicide that's going to occur, it's within the first 6 months of incarceration. A lot of times with prisons, that's already past that 6-month mark. When we're looking at Mule Creek Prison, they put out numbers for us, and so we've aggregated here. We're looking at 2016 and 2017, 2018 and 2019, 2020 and 2021. We do see, as time has gone on, that the Mule Creek State Prison suicides are making up a bigger proportion of Amador County's suicides. In 2016, 2017, that was around 10%. It's gone up to about 14% of the county's suicides are from that prison. I do note that CDCR, they're putting out these reports. They are working to help reduce suicides across the state, including at Mule Creek State Prison.
You know, question, this is Supervisor Neto, question that slide, sir. You have like 2018, 2019, you have 4 at Mule Creek, 28 in the county. Is that actual people or is that like a rated?
Those are counts, yes.
Because it doesn't add up with your numbers you have in the one chart where it says rate per 100,000. You have 37.1.
Yeah, so those numbers.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah, there's only like 35,000 people in Amador County. So on your one chart, it'd be page 14. It shows 37.1 deaths per 100,000 people. 2018 through 2019 is only about 35,000 residents, maybe 38 if you add in Mule Creek. So it doesn't correlate.
Okay, so we are using Department of Finance estimates, and I actually don't have that number available here, but I can look it up and double check what number they use. The Department of Finance for California gives projections of what the population count is per county, and I will confirm that number to see what we're using, because I want to make sure we're getting the correct data to you, and if it does seem like there's an error, I want to find it. So after today's presentation, I will go back and look at what numerator we're using and how accurate it is compared to what we're looking at. So these are counts. Looking at this slides, the prior slides we're looking at rates, and so that was the number per 100,000.
That's actual counts, not a rate then.
Yeah, these on this slide are actual counts. So these are the pure number. And the reason why I did this is that Mule Creek State Prison, while I have good numbers here, so the CDCR releases these numbers, I don't have good population counts. And I can't separate it out for the county in the same fashion. So I use the Department of Finance population counts for your rates, but it does not separate out between the Mule Creek Prison and Amador County. So it's not as effective to do so. But I will double check the numerator, and I'll make sure to get back to you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Next slide, please. So veteran suicides, veterans are considered an at-risk group. So their rate of suicide is much larger than in the non-veteran population. Approximately 25% of Amador County suicides are known to have served in the armed forces, as listed on their death certificate. For the entire state of California, this number is about 15%. So it seems kind of alarming that there's a larger number in Amador County. But I want to meter that expectation. In California, about 3.8% of the population are estimated to be veterans. In Amador County, that number is 9.2%. So you have a lot more veterans living in Amador County. So it would be expected that more of the suicide deaths that occur would also be veterans. So while Amador County sees a larger proportion of veteran suicide deaths than the state, the county's population disproportionately includes more veterans. Next slide, please. So I think we had a summary slide. I don't know if I've taken up too much time too. I don't want to, but going over the data, we do see that there are concerns. There are certain things in Amador County that make they're more susceptible to larger suicide rates, including being a rural county, including being near a prison, having a large veteran population. I do encourage, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at jonah.cox@cdph.ca.gov. We also have this website here for our general website. Also, if you have data needs, we have this Epicenter website. This URL is available to you. You can find out over many years as far as suicide rates as well as self-harm rates at hospitals. I again want to thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of our data with you all.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
It's me again, Debbie. And this one's about our Amador Speaks community engagement. We meet monthly on the third Thursday at 3:30. We're not in person yet. We're still on Zoom. We do have guest speakers, trainings, and workshops. We do that during our meetings also, and send that out in the community announcements to invite the community to join. We advertise meetings monthly in the Amador Ledger, Dispatch, and community announcement emails. We also advertise on the bus too. And then we have our outreach and engagement, which is our marketing materials, which the one you're shown there was one of the first ones, I believe, that was done. Yeah, because I remember that was one I saw when I joined. And we have a radio spot that's monthly opportunity, right, Stephanie? KBGC radio, and community events and initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you.
I brought a little something. I'm a Friends for Survival facilitator, and someone else from Friends for Survival came to an event and brought me some brochures for emergency responders. So I've included that in there.
Can you just hand it to Heather when you're done?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, my name's Deja Douglas. I'm the administrative coordinator for the Amador County Arts Council. I'm a graduate of Argonaut High School, class of 2020, and I hold an associate's degree in psychology from Columbia College. I'm currently enrolled at Sac State University, and I'm a former foster kid, special education student, and survivor of domestic violence. And this past Friday, the Amador Suicide Prevention Coalition collaborated with dozens of community partners to produce the 5th annual Suicide Self-Harm Prevention event of Amador County. Over 120 people attended this multi-generational picnic called Tools for Tomorrow. It was formerly known as Heart of Hope. This family center event brought together people aged 0 to 86, where they enjoyed a free dinner, live music, Mesoamerican dance, creative activities, wellness tools from local resource agencies. I gotta breathe. Okay. Most of the self-harm in Amador County is occurring with young adults. This event is one way we can commit to helping people in my age group in Amador. And we look forward to many more years of partnership with Amador County and the Suicide Prevention Coalition as we further our collective commitment to increasing access to the arts so that all people throughout our rural community can experience the enrichment and wellness benefits that come along with creative expression and cultural experiences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we have Cassandra here from the VA. She's gonna do the next slide. And we're almost done, I promise.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Cassandra Meredith, and I'm the Community Engagement and Partnership Coordinator for the Department of Veteran Affairs. So part of the VA efforts to reduce suicides is to have community involvement. 11 out of the 17 veterans that die by suicide are not engaged in VA healthcare. My role isn't necessarily to bring veterans to the VA, but to support communities with their community-based interventions to make sure that veterans have a seat at the table and that that we provide tools to the community to make sure that they're successful in those efforts. So I've been part of the Amador Speaks Suicide Prevention Committee for quite a while. And one of the things that I wanted to share is Stephanie was saying, when we look at data is very important to help shape what we're doing for suicide prevention efforts. So one of the things that I want to point out as well is the lethal mean safety. So one of the things that we've been doing for Amador County is providing free gun locks and also education on lethal mean safety. 71% of veteran suicides is by firearm, as opposed to the general population, which is 50%. So as you can see, there's a much higher suicide rate as when we look at firearms as opposed to all other methods combined. So when you see the firearm injury, 85 to 90% of firearm attempts are lethal, as opposed to 5% of other methods. The reason why this is so important is when we talk about lethal mean safety, it's not to take away weapons, it's just to enhance safety. So a lot of what we do is provide education around safe storage, and when people might be more susceptible to having thoughts of suicide, making sure that weapons are safely stored is a really important piece when it comes to suicide prevention efforts, and really just providing that education to the community around what lethal mean safety is. So basically anything that builds in time and space between ideation and between attempt. The reason why this is also important is because stats show that suicide ideation and actions are very short, so it could be a very impulsive act. So when we look at some of the percentages, 71% of suicide attempts happen within an hour of the ideation, and of that, 24% happen within 5 minutes. So again, what we're seeing is this can be very impulsive, and anything that we can do to help build in time and space between someone who might be at risk for ideation is really important. So yeah, that's all I want to really say for the purpose of time, and I will hand this over to Stephanie. Thank you.
So how do you, Cassandra, how do you know it's within 5 minutes?
Yeah, so that's what some of the research has shown. So this was based on a study below, and it took in emergency room survivors and talked about when ideation happened. So ideation is just the thought of having suicide and then the impulse. And again, when we look at firearms, because it's so fatal, that's why there's a concern around the impulsivity and making sure that firearms are safely secured.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have a lot of work we're still doing. We do a lot all year long to address suicide in our community, and we are currently updating our strategic plan. We're talking about bringing a spring event to the county, maybe doing something like a hike for hope or some sort of dinner again, like Cap Radio has had, where we have a panel so people have opportunity to engage more and ask questions. And just leaving you today with the theme that Suicide Prevention Month this year is telling us is, what will you do? What action will you take to help prevent suicide in your community? So, you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
There's just a little blurb in there on the Cap Radio deal, but it doesn't talk too much about why in your report.
Yeah. In our strategic plan, we talk about the reasons why. You know, it's one of those things you have to be okay not knowing sometimes. We have all this research and data on risk factors and protective factors, and we know what those are. And we used to get little snippets of why, you know, from the coroner's office, but things have changed and we don't get that information anymore. But back then it was, you know, chronic illness, didn't want to be a burden, spouse died, lonely, you know, things like that.
I think that's an important factor is
It is
why.
huge, yeah.
It's like the other day I was talking to a veteran, it's interesting. He went and did 5 combat tours over in Middle East, I think it was Afghanistan, and he told us about how they have to, rules of engagement when they're over there fighting. Not saying I'm not necessarily support the wars, but they are what they are. We got enough problems at home without being over there. But he was saying how he was like a forward fire observer or something like that for like helicopter gunships. And how when our troops are shot at, that they were supposed to try to disengage and say they're Americans. I don't remember quite exactly what he said, but disengage and get away from that. If they couldn't do that, then you try to suppress with overpowering firepower. And if that didn't work, you know, then at some point you could say, hey, we need some help. We need some aerial help here. And I'm sure all this time you're being shot at and some of your buddies are possibly dying or being wounded. And at some point, then they bring in aerial firepower. And what they do is they would not bring it to bear on the enemy and kill the enemy. They would go and shoot a hillside nearby to show how they're massive, overpowering firepower. And if the enemy didn't disengage at that point, at some point they'd call in, you know, a strike on enemy positions. And he had a lot of issues with that because he saw his buddies die while they're over there strafing bare hillsides when the people are shooting at him are right here. And he said he got wrote up 17 times because he didn't go through all the proper strafing empty hillsides. He just went and called in airstrikes on enemy positions without giving them the warning, show of massive firepower. And I guess the point I'm making is I think some of the veterans may struggle with that because when they go to war, and you're doing all you can do, not that you want to be there, but something else to go to war and you're told to do all kinds of ridiculous stuff while your fellow troops are being killed. And I think that's something that's hard to live with. How we change that, I don't know, but I think that's American policy. Just food for thought.
Definitely.
Okay, Supervisor Axe?
Yeah, well, I think the reasons are, there are a lot of different reasons people do, and I think a lot of times it's impulsive, and, being able to talk and to somebody, I think, goes a long way to helping folks like that when they're dealing with, demons of the past or, personal problems or health issues. It's being able to talk and having people that can recognize that there might be warning signs. I think that's what's critical, because it does seem like often people make an impulsive decision, and unfortunately, once you make that decision, it's hard to turn back.
Supervisor Forster? Supervisor Crew?
No, interesting.
Okay, I'd like to read the resolution. Resolution proclaiming September 10th through September 16th as National Suicide Prevention Week, whereas the week of September 10th through September 16th, 2023 is National Suicide Prevention Week and National Suicide Prevention Month, a time in which individuals, organizations, and communities around the country join their voices to amplify the message that suicide can be prevented, and whereas it is recognized that people of all ages benefit from common tenets of wellness, such as access to effective health care, behavioral health care, social support, and a sense of meaning and purpose, and whereas attitudes and perceptions about aging, behavioral health challenges, and suicide have a significant impact on individual wellness and the willingness to reach out for support and services that can be alleviated to stress. And whereas cultivating and maintaining wellness is a lifelong pursuit, and individuals of all ages can benefit from integrating wellness into their daily routine to prevent or reduce the severity of a broad range of health and behavioral health problems. Whereas knowing the signs of suicide, find the words to talk with someone that may be thinking of suicide, and reaching out to local resources are an action everyone can take to care for themselves and others. And whereas all Californians are urged to take action for suicide prevention and promote mental health and wellness as we strive toward zero suicides. Whereas September 10th through 16th is recognized across the United States as Suicide Prevention Week, and September is recognized as Suicide Prevention Month, providing the opportunity to educate and engage everyone in our community to find their role in suicide prevention. Therefore, it be proclaimed by the Amador Speaks, Amador County Suicide Prevention Coalition, and all members of Amador County Board of Supervisors on this 12th day of September 2023, that the week of September 10th through the 16th be declared Suicide Prevention Week, and that the month of September be declared Suicide Prevention Month. I'd like to call for a motion to approve.
Move to approve the resolution.
Second.
Okay. Heather, would you call for the vote, please?
Thank you. Chairman Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Onetto?
Aye.
Supervisor Forster?
Aye.
Supervisor Axe?
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0, approved.
One more thing before you leave. How did the event go on September 8th?
Great.
Can you go to the mic?
It was great. We had a good turnout, and we had a lot of people there that we don't normally see. So that was the point, was to get more outreach to people to bring them in, and a lot of folks stayed the entire time. So it went really well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, we're on to 4A, ACES 2024 for RRI, proposed rate adjustment.
Good morning.
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 Tough act to follow there.
It is.
Jeff Gardner, Director of Solid Waste. I have Richard Schoen on Zoom here. He's going to discuss the report that they did. They are our third-party consultants that review the annual rate review for the waste hauler. It's that time of year. This becomes effective just January 1st of 2024. We aren't doing a full rate review. It's a sort of a automatic rate review. It's called an RRI. I don't remember specifically what that acronym is for, but Richard will review that. In the prior year, last year in September of 2022, when we did the rate review, the board passed when the board passed the item, we included in the item a 5-year allowance for rate increases as long as they fell within certain parameters. The rate increase for this year falls within those parameters, so it's sort of automatic. The board has already approved it. We don't have to go out to a 218 vote on this. Richard will explain that, and I will turn it over to him. I don't believe there's a PowerPoint presentation because there's just a lot of technical detail included in with this information, as you saw in the packet. But he will review the potential rate increases and ask for the board's concurrence. William.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, supervisors. As Mr. Gardner noted, today's or this year's rate adjustment is an indexed rate adjustment, which involves a series of indices to calculate the rate adjustments for each of the franchise areas and the transfer stations. The rate adjustment protocol in the franchise agreement does allow for a detailed rate adjustment, which actually ties the rate increases to actual expenses. Again, that is not occurring this year, but could occur next year or the following years. It can be done anytime, but no more frequent than every fourth year. So again, this is the RRI index in the county's franchise agreement. The calculated rate increases, as noted in the agenda packet, are for franchise area 1, 9.68%, franchise area 2, 4.89%, franchise areas 3 and 4, 8.97%, the Pine Grove Transfer Station, 1.19%, and the Buena Vista Wharf Transfer Station, 5.71%. All of those rate increases are influenced heavily by the significant increase in the diesel fuel index. It went up more than 40% last year, and the vehicle maintenance indices. Both of those were significantly higher than the consumer price index. So those had a big impact on the calculated rate adjustments. All of those increases fall under the 10% maximum allowed increase that was noticed in last year's Prop 218 notice, which covers the period 2023 through 2027. So that notice still applies, as these rate adjustments are within that 10%, and no additional noticing is required. In conducting our review, it was noted that in order to maintain the rates below that 10% maximum, ACES made a number of concessions in its calculated transfer station adjustments. For the Pine Grove Transfer Station, the only factor that it used to calculate the rate increase was the disposal adjustment. It didn't account for labor, fuel, vehicle maintenance, or other expenses. And for the wharf, it did not include the allowable adjustment for diesel fuel, as that would put the at least one of the rate increases over 10%. So it made concessions for both the Pine Grove and Wharf Transfer Station in terms of not including all of the adjustments that were allowed or are allowed under the RRI. I think that covers what I wanted to cover today, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the calculated adjustments or the methodology.
William, those amounts that were not included this year that could have been allowed expenses, can they be recovered in the future, or is this set in stone that we move forward with expenses in the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. Per the methodology, we would only be going back to the prior calendar year for calculating the indices. So in that case, they would not. It may be a moot point if a detailed rate review is conducted next year, which is allowed. Either the county or the company can request it, in which case it's set to allowable. But at this point, per the methodology, we would just move forward with the indices calculated per the agreement and not providing for a catch-up. The company hasn't asked for that, but it's a good point.
Thank you. Supervisor Axe?
Yeah, Richard, just how does this compare with, I know last year we went through the comprehensive adjustment. How does this compare with other more recent adjustments, especially with the higher inflation rate?
Last year was an indexed adjustment as well. I think the last 2 years have been.
It was. Oh, okay.
Yeah, index adjustments. Are you speaking to the county internally comparison or to other outside agencies?
Just to the county ACEs. So were they in the same ballpark last year?
Yeah, I'm just going to look. The agenda packet does include the historical rate adjustments.
All right.
That's attachment D.
Yeah,
Attachment D.
you can see that.
Okay.
So
yeah, I had to kind of prepare myself for a phone call.
Yeah, so I mean, the industry overall has experienced pretty significant increases in many of the expenses. Fuel, which is a major cost, labor is significantly increasing. There's been significant need for labor. It's been hard to find and keep good qualified staff throughout the industry. So we've seen some fairly significant increases the last few years. Again, it's all based on the change in the indices. I will say that fuel, which was the largest increase last year at over 40%, this year is tracking at, I believe, almost a 15% decrease. So I guess that's somewhat good news in terms of future potential adjustments with that cost coming into a little more uniformity and not increasing at the rate that it has the past several years.
So do you think maybe that aspect of the increase could go down next year?
If an indexed rate adjustment were conducted, it would based on year-to-date results. Again, if the company requests or the county requests a detailed rate adjustment next year, we'd be setting costs to actual. But in looking at projecting those costs, we look at the indices as well. So I think that would be reflected in some manner in the adjustment next year.
Why was Area 2 lower than 1 and 3 and 4?
Because it was higher last year.
Yeah, it has to do with the percentage of expenses because they're allocated amongst the different areas. So it's really just the result of the mathematical calculation in terms of the percentage adjustments to each of the indices components and the percentage of those components within each franchise area as a percent of the total. So it's a purely mathematical result.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. You have like a chart showing all the different costs and the percentages. Like page, say, 21, you've got depreciation and interest. What would the interest charges be?
That's on the on any loans related to depreciation and capital costs. So financing.
Okay, and what is the interest rate on those loans and who are they from?
You know, I don't know, and we don't look at that as part of this review. We simply look at their depreciation schedules to confirm that the numbers they're reporting are consistent. I don't know if there's a representative from ACES in there that could speak to that, but that would be something during a detailed rate review where we'd be looking at that much more closely.
Okay.
I'm Christina Connexted from ACES Waste Services. I'm the finance manager.
Paul Mulhelly, Junior, ACES Waste Services.
And we have two equipment lenders, M&T Financing and Huntington National Bank. The rates have gone up in the past year. These are loans for mostly trucks, trailers, that we use for the operations. And the rates these days are just shy of 8%.
And that's the only loans you have then that you're paying on?
So all of the loans that we have, we usually take a 3 to a 5 year term. And some of the rates are as low as 4 and 5%.
So only loans you have then are equipment loans? Okay.
Thank you very much. I just want to make sure that since you're not asking for some expenses, that those aren't going to come full circle next year and be added on, because if you start piling on, then the rates for different areas are really going to be high.
That's not our intent to go back.
Well, you know how rates work with the water agency. If you try and average them out to get to that, I don't know what, I think the average over time has been like 4-point-something% increase per year. So if we can keep it in that range. Unfortunately, I don't like it any more than anybody else, but I see it as reality that with the changes in state law and what they're trying to do with recyclables and having a zero waste stream, prices are going to keep going up.
No, I would agree. Don't forget the actions the Air Board has been taking, making people get rid of perfectly good serviceable vehicles, buy brand new ones that have a lot more problems, a lot more expense. Problems equate to expense.
Absolutely.
Supervisor Crew, do you have anything?
Who's muted?
Supervisor Crew, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, it doesn't surprise me. The cost of everything for everybody has gone crazy. So the numbers, frankly, were a little lower than I might have expected.
Okay. Anybody from the public? Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay, back to the board.
I'd move to approve the 2024 transfer station rate adjustments and approve the 2024 solid waste rate increase for rate zones 1 through 4 in accordance with Prop 218 provisions adopted in the public hearing on September 13th, 2022, and direct staff to mail notices to affected customers, property owners with a postmark no later than 10/31/23.
I'll second that.
Okay. Call for the vote.
Thank you. Chairman Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Oneto?
Aye.
Supervisor Forster?
Aye.
Supervisor Axe?
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to 4B, General Service Administration Animal Control Fee Schedule.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. John Hopkins, General Services Director.
Evan Jacobs, Director of Animal Control.
So this is on your agenda for you guys to, excuse me, to review. I gave you a couple other memos where the board had reviewed fees before in the past, and the reason that I did this is, as the board's aware, that we're currently talking to all the cities right now about animal control services, and some of the cities have mentioned that perhaps we take a look at our fees, and some even suggested that maybe we raise our fees to help offset some of their costs. Unfortunately, the cities, I don't think, understand entirely how all of the intricacies of animal control work. And in fact, Evan is here today to announce one of the events that he's going to hold that is listed on our fee schedule to reduce adoption fees because of the totality of animals that we have, which is in direct conflict with what the cities are maybe asking us to do.
That's what I was thinking, because you raise your adoption fees, you're gonna have more animals at your shelter.
So, Evan, go ahead and tell them what,
Yeah, so we're gonna use one of the two, it's gonna be Here Comes Fall. So come to Amador County Animal Control and fall in love with your new best friend. All dog and cat adoptions are $15 starting September 15th through the 30th. And then just please note that a dog license may apply if you live within the county and you adopt a dog from us.
so we're holding that event to reduce fees, just like Sacramento City and Sacramento County, as I noted in my memo to you. But again, it's your chance here to go through any fee, to take a look at that and to let me and Evan know if there's any changes that you'd like us to make.
Raise the surrender fee.
The surrender fee, okay, to?
I'd say at least $50, maybe more.
We can justify it wherever it needs to, because our costs associated with surrenders are significant, but the risk is that they'll just start abandoning them rather than.
Right.
I thought about that, yeah.
Yeah, you know how that, it's actually just like what you were talking about with garbage, right?
I
Fees
think
go
the
up too high, it ends up on the side of the road.
I will say, I think the people are gonna abandon them, whether it's $1 or $100, doesn't matter. It's a thought.
It's a risk, yeah, but it is, yeah, you're right in that line.
So how are we marketing your event?
So Supervisor, Oneto, you're talking about taking that fee from $30 to $80.
I think I said 50, but,
Well, you said raise it 50, that.
$250, not
Raise
$550.
it $250.
yeah.
Oh, raise it $20.
I don't get a lot of surrenders anyway, do you? Really?
Yeah, we get a fair bit. I would say anecdotally, I don't have the numbers, but probably 20% or so of all the animals that come through, give or take.
And, actually, I mean, probably could, like you said, you could raise it up to 80 as a price. Somebody got an animal they don't want, maybe for whatever reason, and now they want to pass it off the county to take care of. I mean, so you got probably vet fees, food fees, care fees. I mean, so yeah, you can raise it up. I mean, maybe even more wouldn't hurt my feelings.
What are we doing to market your event? And then also just to market, that, we have animals for people to adopt. I mean, that would probably help reduce a lot of the burden if we adopted out more of our pets.
You see your screen first thing here in the morning?
Okay, but I mean, we're doing like Facebook and
Yes,
all
we
of that?
do a ton of outreach on Facebook.
Okay.
KVCG has been, just came yesterday to do a promotion on some of our animals, and we're always trying to market them, because without that, you're not gonna be able to move them. I've had animals at the shelter, perfectly healthy, happy, behaviorally sound animals since May, and adoptions are just not moving. So, we're just trying to, promote it.
With respect to cats, I know that rodents can be a problem for a lot of people, especially if they live in a little more wooded areas. That's a good thing to throw out there, is that, having a cat is better than putting down traps and poison.
So they also do, they also have all the rescues and all the organizations, that they work with, as well as,
Right.
a very large number of volunteers that also.
Yes. No, I know that APAL has been a great organization to partner with. They do a lot for the community. They're real dedicated.
Well, they're focused on cats primarily.
Yeah. Well, I thought they did dogs as well at one time. No?
They'll help with the community if someone might need some vet care, but, they don't take in direct intakes of dogs.
Okay. Well, I thought
Maybe case by case basis.
that they were trying to adopt out some dogs. Anyhow.
You two are the experts. So I was kind of hoping when I read through this that there would have been some recommendations for things to do. So I'd like you to see you come back with some recommendations.
Well, I got a recommendation now. I've done homework over the last 40 years regarding
Why
animal
wasn't
control.
it in here? I think it should have been.
It's here because of the, what I mentioned earlier, we're starting those negotiations with the cities. It's a recommendation back from the cities. They gave no recommendations other than They'd like to see those fees go up because in their mind, they think that that would help offset their cost. It will not in reality, from my perspective and from my opinion. I think our fees are fine. You might want to raise our daily fee board is $10. I think, you know, what Zach is.
I don't know, but El Dorado is.
Well, scrutinize this
Yeah,
and
El Dorado
come
counts
back
like-
with an organized, recommendation for us.
And do you want me to, we'll do a survey of Northern California counties maybe and put that into perspective for you?
No, I think you've looked at our adjacent counties. I mean, might be a good idea for us to do the same thing with dogs to try and get them adopted. The only thing I would say you look at is, instead of waiving the fees for just veterans, maybe waive the fees for people that are 65 and over who need a companion animal.
Senior for senior.
Yeah, I think that's in there for the seniors already.
Yeah, I mean, I would even consider, you know, paying them to take, make it a negative fee.
No, you don't want to do that. I don't think you want to do that. Somebody, they gotta be vested with the animal
Well,
and
at
bring
least-
something.
at
If you
least
get something for nothing, then it's,
Certain groups.
if you get something for nothing, then
We're
it's,
waiving the fees for veterans. I think that's a good thing, especially we just had a suicide prevention, seminar or presentation. I think that would, go a long way to help somebody that's, in need, in crisis.
Yeah, no, I'd support that.
Supervisor Crew, do you have anything?
Yeah, just, speak to you, Supervisor
Hold on.
Axe. Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
Supervisor Crew, do you have any input?
I would say,
Okay.
I would say raise the surrender fee for sure, maybe even more, because it's something, we're taking on somebody else's burden. So, I don't know how the board feels about that, but that's something I would see.
To touch Supervisor Axe, there is a state law that passed 2 or 3 years ago, maybe a tad bit longer, that if you are a veteran, you do get a 12-month period, free waived adoption fees.
Great.
And so we
It
do follow
may
that.
be also just for seniors. We have a lot of seniors in the area, and maybe there are pets or dogs or cats that are real apropos for somebody
Yeah.
of that age group, and that we can try to get the word out to them, maybe even, waive their fees as well if they'll take the pet.
Yes, we do have that as well. Kelly Reesing previous, to me, was able to do a senior for senior. So anyone 65 and older adopts an animal that's 7 years or older, will get that fee waived as well. And the thought process behind that is, most, retirees do have some disposable income and can care for a senior animal that might need just a little more vet care. So
Yeah, I would also just think dogs that are smaller, because as you get older, you don't want a Saint Bernard or German Shepherd.
Yeah, unfortunately, the small dog population, I just had a Chihuahua last week. It didn't stay on the adoption floor for more than 15 minutes before it gets adopted.
Oh, okay, so that's not a problem.
No, it's the large, dogs and the juvenile large dogs that are the hardest to get out.
Okay. And do we post pictures on the website at all?
Yeah, if you go to the county animal control page, you'll see all our available dogs, and then same with strays. Anyone who's missing a stray can go there, and then they can also go to our Facebook page, and we try to promote, do a shelter walkthrough with a video or an individual post of a dog or cat.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so do we have any public input on this?
Thank you. We do have a comment via Zoom. Ms. Grambois, please go ahead when ready.
Yes, my name is Cindy Grambois, and I had a question out of curiosity, please. I know as a resident of the county, I don't live in a city, that when I have a dog, I pay for a licensing fee. Do the cities, if you live within the city of Jackson or Ione, do you have a licensing fee there also?
They pay the county licensing fee.
And do you benefit from that licensing fee from the cities?
Yes, it does go, directly into our revenues, and then goes back into the general fund.
Okay, and I appreciate that information. And then I had another question, being that you just had the suicide people up there and everything, perhaps there's partnerships that could be formed at their events that you could bring some adoptable dogs to their events. Just a thought. Thank you for your
Perfect.
time.
Thank you.
Okay, it's back to the board.
I think probably, I like Rich's idea, probably worked, maybe just on some recommendations, because you probably know it, you and Devin do probably better than we do.
All right. You want us to bring that back to open or just put it on consent?
Get back to the regular agenda item.
Okay. Sure, no problem.
Just, you guys are around it all the time, and your staff too, they can come up with some reasonable expectations or reasonable recommendations that make sense.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, we're on to 4C, General Service Administration, County Vehicle Identification.
So, you can see, in this, members of the board, a letter from Ann Watts and a letter from, or a memo to me, and I think, Melissa Cranfield's memo to me, requesting that certain vehicles be, remain unmarked. It's really up to the board. The reason this is on the agenda is this isn't a policy issue. This is actually in our Muni code, so the board has to weigh in on that. Other counties, through looking into this process here, do have either Muni codes or policies that do allow the fleet manager and the CAO to make sort of these decisions. You may want us to do that in the future, but right now, the Muni code's pretty straightforward. It says all vehicles will be marked unless otherwise approved by the board. So, at your discretion.
The departments usually know their areas the best, and I think the letters from Ms. Watts and Ms. Cranfield spell it out pretty clearly, their concerns for their staff and the reasons for having unmarked vehicles, confidentiality. So I'd be supportive of the changes.
Yeah, I think some of the reasons are very good. Sometimes they have kids in the car, and, you know, that could be stigmatizing for a kid being dropped off at school or being seen. And, you know, I think it's, you know, kids are pretty self-conscious, and, that's a big deal, so.
It's also to maintain the dignity of the families.
Yes, that too. And, you know, sometimes people need a little help, and they shouldn't have to pay an extra price for it.
Supervisor Neto? Supervisor Crew?
I agree with the board members. A little family dignity and a little compassion go a long ways.
Do we have anybody in the public? Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay.
What would you do, John? Would you incorporate the petition process into our policy?
Yeah, well, not policy. It's a Muni code, so that's a little more difficult to change. But if it's the board's will right now, staff hears that and will, Greg, I guess council would need to weigh in on whether or not, I think that's appropriate, that if they choose to give that discretion to the CAO and myself, that can move forward even though it's in the Muni code.
Yeah, so the board can delegate its authority to make those changes or adjustments or exceptions. I think that's appropriate.
So is this a direction to staff?
Right.
I think I think the board needs to take an action to delegate that authority to whoever you want to do it.
Well, do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to provide an exception to county cars in social services and behavioral health to, that their vehicles can be unmarked, for all the reasons we discussed.
Have a second?
I'll second with a question. Do the vehicles still require some kind of little seal or something in the window that says Amador County on them?
They do not. Our code is similar to a lot of counties where it has the county seal on each side of the door, and then they're numbered. What I can't get rid of is the exempt plate. That is only earmarked for law enforcement and undercover vehicles. And that's a process the state of California requires a letter from the sheriff's office in order to have what we call cold plating. Ann and Melissa are aware of that exempt plate will remain, but no logo or number on the vehicle will be on the vehicle. So San Joaquin County, they still, even though they're unmarked, they still put a little San Joaquin County sticker in their windshield, but we don't do that here.
Why does this require a 4/5 vote? Oh, okay, it says yes.
That's a fat finger mistake.
Okay. All right.
Okay. We have a first and a second. Clerk, call for the vote.
Thank you. Chairman Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Onetto?
Aye.
Supervisor Forster?
Aye.
Supervisor Axe?
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew?
Aye.
Okay, that's 5-0 approved. We're on to 4D, General Service Administration, discussion of possible action relative to AB 1637, which requires the county secure a .gov domain rather than a .org name that we currently use.
Jeff, there you are. This is under Jeff's realm here. You can see that the county's domain name is looking to be changed. I've asked Jeff to make things as simple as possible. I don't like to get them any more complicated than what they need to be. He has a sheet of paper here that he can go over with you here on some suggestions. Yes, please pass that out to the board members. Supervisor Crew, sorry you're not here, but what Jeff's passing out right now just shows some examples of some different domain names that will be recommended here shortly.
Okay.
So Jeff will talk to you about why this is occurring, and then hopefully we'll just move on pretty quick to say what you recommend. I know that what I recommend is in the top 8 there, short and simple. Go ahead, Jeff.
Morning, Supervisors. Jeff White, IT Department. So the request for a .gov comes from the federal level. There's other reasons for the county having that. Some kind of ties to some of the grants and things like that, where if you have a .gov, that's one of the criteria they're looking for. It's easy to adopt a grant early on and then use that, adopt a domain name early on and use that domain name as systems are upgraded over time, rather than trying to retroactively go back and change the domain name. The reason for that is AB 1637, they pushed the date out to 2029. So we're certainly early in the process. As you can see by the sheet I just handed out, there's quite a few counties who have already gone ahead and got their .gov domain name, as this has been kind of in the works for a few years now. The sheet that I handed out shows counties who have chosen the county name followed by the word county .gov. That's under the top level domain name of .gov. The second grouping shows those that chose it to be under the second level domain name of ca.gov. The third block down shows those that used their county name followed by county ca.gov with no dot in the middle, so they're back under a top level domain. The second from the bottom, placer.ca.gov, it shows they used the county name with no identifier of county. .ca.gov, so they're under the second level domain of ca.gov. And then the very last one is kind of a unique outlier. That's San Francisco. They just used the 2-letter acronym .gov. So there is a document out there that the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency has, and it goes over the rules for identifying your county's domain name, utilizing the .gov. So, and there are exceptions in there. For instance, Lake County, there's quite a few lake counties, or there's multiple, I'll say lake counties across the United States.
Are there any other Amador counties, or are we the only one?
We are the very own Amador. In their database, our little Amador city doesn't show up either, because they don't meet the criteria. So we are unique in Amador. Technically, we could apply to .gov to be amador.gov.
Oh, I would love that.
Okay, the question to you.
I was right there with you.
I loved that. I thought that was great. The recommendation from CISA, the Fed level, was that we do amadorcounty.gov. Even though we're the only Amador, they still like to see it unambiguous. The identifier county is recommended.
I understand, but when you're sitting there calling out the letters, you know, because you have a constituent that's sitting there, you know, needs to email me, and I'm going down the list, to add any more letters to it is crazy. So.
Well, you know, at least in California, Amador occurs in other places. I know over in Pleasanton, there's the Amador Valley, and I think the person that our county is named after their ranch was over in that neck of the woods as opposed to over here. So it is a California type name, so maybe having the county is still probably the better way to go.
I like the county.
I think we should spice it up a little and do something a little unique.
No.
Okay? Like loveamadorcounty.gov.
Where is amadorcounty.gov?
I'm not kidding. I mean, it would highlight Amador County even more.
Or visit
You know, I got a feeling if you
amadorcounty.gov.
Googled that, love Amador County, you might get more than just county government.
Loveamadorcounty.gov.
Yeah.
Can you be more explicit?
No, I use your imagination. I just don't know that that'd be a good idea.
Always throwing cold water on stuff.
Well, we do have an organization, a rescue organization, called piglove.com for animal control. But if you Google that, yeah, that's the only reason I'm making that suggestion, that we stick to more a uniform governmental agency name.
Yeah, I think Amador County is probably the way to go.
Supervisor Crew?
The simpler, the better. I kind of agree with the chairman.
I got 2 to 3. Okay, I'm in trouble.
You can tell the typist in the group.
Supervisor, you
Neto?
may give me instruction to apply in any way. So if you choose amador.gov, we can apply. If they approve it, we can go forward. If they deny it, we can always go back. So it's entirely up to you. How you wish.
I like the county thrown in personally. Sorry, Jeff.
I know it. I kind of figured. Okay, so we do want to go to actually, we need to go to public. Anybody on Zoom?
Not at this time.
Okay. So we're looking at staff suggestion of amadorcounty.gov. Do I have a motion to that?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Call for the roll call vote?
Thank you, Chairman Brown,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Oneto,
Aye.
Supervisor Forster,
No.
Supervisor Axe,
Aye.
and Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
410. Hey.
Okay.
Go find amadorcounty.gov.
There you go.
Now, we're not losing Google coordinating this, right? Or do we lose Google at that point?
No, well, if you're talking about
managing.
all your existing domain names, they'll still work.
Right.
You're not losing any.
So like when we change the name of our email address, do we still have Google managing that portion of it?
We do at this time, yes.
Is that going to be taken away eventually, or?
That's a very long conversation. I'll give you the really short.
Okay.
The state has adopted Microsoft as their platform.
Right.
And the state shares a lot of resources with county departments. We have public health, social services, I think some in behavioral, ag, I think is one of them. There's several others that utilize resources from the state, shared by the state, using the Microsoft environment. So we are already using the Microsoft environment, but not at the level that we need to be. I say need to be, or that we are now. It is most likely that we are transitioning that way at some point in the future. So I'm sure we'll have more of this conversation.
Because after 34 years in governmental service myself, I am so tired of Microsoft and Outlook. When I came over to the Google platform, life has been so much nicer. So,
Fortunately, the state doesn't agree.
yeah, I understand. I was afraid you'd say that, but I want to at least put it out there, get it out there. Okay,
Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisors.
Okay, we're on to 4E, review of the August 22nd, 2023 Board of Supervisor meeting minutes.
Move to approve the minutes with, 2 minor corrections.
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Thank you, Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Oneto.
Aye.
Supervisor Forster.
Aye.
Supervisor Axe.
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew.
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. We're gonna take a 5-minute break right quick and be back at 10:30 for a public hearing. Okay, we're bringing the meeting back to order for the public hearing, discussion of possible action relative to the public hearing to consider the adoption of the 2023-2024 fiscal year proposed adopted budget.
Supervisors, the budget, as a balanced budget is in your packet there and available for download by the public if so desired. It's pretty much the same as the preliminary budget was that we approved in June. There are a few minor tweaks here and there. The only big change was that the carryover is down significantly, which has been offset by a reduction in expenditures, predominantly from the payment of the HHS rent, which I don't know if you all remember, we talked about how the state was going to make us front the money for the HHS rent so that we could run that payment through the A87 process. The state has changed its mind and it's reverted back to the way it was before. And so now the money we had budgeted no longer needs to be spent for that. So it fits very nicely into that pocket that was created by the reduction in the carryover. Other than that, there have been no changes, no layoffs, no significant changes in county operations at all.
Okay.
Any questions?
Supervisors?
So our carryover, was that due to the enhanced jail expenditures?
No, the jail didn't affect that. It was just departments spending more than we had anticipated really in the last half to the last quarter of the year.
Any particular departments?
It did go all the way across the board.
Supervisor Forster?
Nope, no questions.
Supervisor Crew?
No questions.
Okay, do we have a motion to close public? Oh, wait a second, I gotta go out to the public first.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Okay. Anybody from the public?
Not at this time.
Okay. Motion to close public hearing.
Close public hearing.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Thank you. Chairman Brown?
Aye.
Vice Chairman Onetto?
Aye.
Supervisor Forster?
Aye.
Supervisor Axe?
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew?
Aye.
Okay, 5-0 to close public hearing. Back to the board for discussion. Anything? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the,
I'll make a motion to adopt the 2023-24 fiscal year budget.
do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Thank you, Chairman Brown.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Onetto?
Aye.
Supervisor Axe?
Aye.
Supervisor Forster?
Aye.
And Supervisor Crew?
Aye.
Kind of mixing it up there.
Yes.
Okay. Motion 5-0 approved.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, just wanted to say, as always, thanks to Kim and to Tacey and her office. I think Tacey Michelle did a thorough review of this whole thing. You'll also notice that the presentation of this has changed by 90 degrees. We've gone to a portrait version of the document versus the landscape we've traditionally used. So it will look different. So, but all
I had a
is
complete set, and this kind of messed
I know
that
it
up.
won't fit now. Yeah. The one thing to keep in mind, next year we have seen our PERS costs and the unfunded liability is going to go up by about $750,000. So this year it went down by $250,000. So that will be spread. That 750 doesn't hit just the general fund; it will hit all funds, but it will be coming for next year. So,
I thought that this whole PERS thing, we were gonna like, kind of get out of this or kind of reach blue skies somewhere.
well, the reason it's going up by 750 is because of what was it, 3 years ago when they actually lost money.
Yeah.
I think they lost 5%. So that has come to roost in the actuarials. So, that will hit. Now, they had that one dip and then they're back. They're not quite hitting the 6.75 that they're supposed to be hitting, but, they're not losing money at least. But yes, it's going to continue to rise until they get their stuff together.
So how does California not hit, but I just looked at my federal and they did a 16%. You know, that is, you know, wow, such a difference.
Rate of return you're talking about on their investment?
Probably what they're investing in, who their investment advisors are.
That would be my guess. The issue.
Okay, anything else? This meeting is adjourned until Tuesday, September 26th at 9 a.m. Closed session begins at 8:30.
Did we have any more closed session items? Okay, we got.
No.